Well, a number of businesses are being forced to shut across Australia today, including popular venues such as pubs and clubs. Reporter Elias is in Melbourne, where the closures of those non-essential businesses have now come into effect. Elias, can you talk us through what businesses exactly have been forced to close in the last few minutes?
Yeah, good afternoon, Catherine. Well, one of Victoria's biggest employers, Crown Casino, has just shut its doors. It'll join bars, clubs, cinemas, gyms, places of worship across the state, which of course now have to close until that April period. This is the first stage of what Daniel Andrews described as effectively a shutdown period of non-essential businesses effectively. As you mentioned, essential services are still available, but across Melbourne we've been walking around, driving around, speaking to people here. It's a ghost town. Cafes and restaurants, many of them decided not to open today, although they can still operate with a home delivery service. It appears they've seen the writing on the wall and just closed anyway. Now, what this will mean for the workforce and for people that run small businesses and larger businesses as well, we'll have to wait and see. Stimulus packages have been announced by the federal and state governments, but whether they're effective, I guess we'll just have to wait and see. Many of these venues are, I guess, promising to open and reopen again, pubs and clubs. But again, we're entering into the unknown, so no one really has any idea what will be the result of it.
What we do know, though, Elias, is that these close down affects thousands and thousands of workers. Can you tell us in a little bit more detail what the Victorian Premier had to say this morning in regards to this?
Yeah, well, the Premier said that the government will be there to help these businesses navigate those uncharted waters and try and provide some sort of stimulus. Of course, $500 million has been committed to businesses that are most significantly affected by this. But in saying this, he said that the social distancing measures weren't working. That's why they've had to move to these measures and were discussed and agreed upon at National Cabinet last night. So effectively they had to act and ensure that people weren't congregating in confined spaces. He said it's not a time for people to get on the beers now that pubs and clubs are shut, and that school holidays, which have been brought forward early here in Victoria, won't be school holidays as they usually are. He's asked people to stay at home when possible and only access essential services, only travel if it's really absolutely essential and necessary. And so he said that anyone that disobeys these rules is selfish and is putting lives at risk. Let's have a listen to what Daniel Andrews had to say a little earlier today.
It'll be a very different school holiday than usual, and it needs to be, because if we don't start taking these things seriously, then we will be talking about quite amazing tragedy. Now, many Victorians are doing the right thing. They are keeping their distance. They are observing the rules that have been written. But there are many Victorians who are acting selfishly. They are not taking this seriously. They are doing the wrong thing. And if that continues, then people will die. It is easy to do the right thing for your family and for people that you have never met. I just want to make this point. Whether you call it mateship, whether you call it being Australian, being Victorian, whether you call it decent behaviour, civic duty, I don't care what you call it, just do it. You need to keep your distance.
And Catherine, just before I leave you, Daniel Andrews there, speaking of selfish people throwing parties, some news breaking today. A doctor has called out 2 players from the North Melbourne Football Club for throwing a wild party last night. The football club has confirmed to the ABC that there were several noise complaints, and players Nick Larkey and Cameron Zuhar did throw a party last night. So disappointing news coming out of the football circles, given that the AFL season was postponed yesterday as well.
Elias with the latest out of Victoria. Many thanks. Well, with business